can't even see where to press here. Is that the correct thing? Okay. Thank you. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and happy 2016 to those of you that we haven't met. At this head table, I'm joined by the Acting National Commissioner, General Patlane, on my right, as well as General Tlemeza, who's the head of the Hawks, on my left, and General Mgwenya on the far right of General Patlane, as well as the acting secretary for the Civilian Secretariat of Police. And behind you are senior police officials and managers in the South African Police Service. So you are accordingly asked to behave. So you have quite a contingent of law enforcement and enforcement officers in this room. Having said so, we just emerged from the festive season in 2015, and we have taken note of some of the positive developments that we will also want to speak to at a later point in this particular presentation. One of which was, of course, that it would be recalled that we emphasized on the issue of going back to basics insofar as the issue of policing is concerned. But we said we are going back to basics, and the point of emphasis is a question of transformation and institutional reform. Because we are going back to basics precisely because we need to achieve that particular objective, which means, amongst other things, there's a whole range of issues that we need to look into, evaluate, analyze, and everything else, process, and then, of course, be able to articulate adequately on those particular matters. One of the milestones identified, particularly during the festive season, which you must have also seen, was the general positive commentary about the deployment of the South African Police Service and increasing levels of visibility, for instance, particularly around concentrated points of social activity during the festive seasons, be it your malls, your beaches and everything else and so on. So it has been quite an interesting thing to note that there has been those kinds of developments insofar as positive comments around the work that we had to put up during that particular period. But also, generally, there is a perception that the festive season that we emerged from was largely not having so much of incidents that one could actually essentially speak about. Now, taking into account what the issue of the festive season period tends to be in the South African context, heightened levels of, ultra levels of criminal activity and so on, and so it goes. Even in the province of the Western Cape, for an example, where it's also known that it's drug infested and gang infested and so forth. Interestingly, we also come across comments that say that, our people did very well there, and congratulations to General Cruiser, who was, during that period, the acting provincial commissioner in the Western Cape. During the festive season period, we had a daily average of just in excess of 20,000 members in terms of deployment. And of course, in Gauteng, we had about 5,399 daily deployment of members, as well as 4,146 in KZN and 2,935 in the Western Cape. Now, having said so, we have asked ourselves a question: what is it that should define policing in 2016, or how 2016 should necessarily define our work as the South African Police Service. So we had said that our point of emphasis this year is the question of transformation and institutional reform in the South African Police Service. And that essentially means that we have to focus largely on policy emphasis, such as, for an example, the National Development Plan, as well as the recommendations of the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, amongst others. And in there are these issues that we must also finalize: the question of the non-statutory forces, the program that currently runs within the South African Police Service. And the fact of the matter is that we need to be able to close that chapter and go over the issue of attending adequately to the issues pertaining to the so-called non-statutory forces and so forth. But we'll also want to look into the issue of policy and legislative review. And I think in this particular presentation, we will also cite some of those. Our transformation and institutional reform program continues to be influenced by policies of the African National Congress and the broader government strategic framework. The National Development Plan is indeed at the center of our policy outlook, and it continues to be a guiding tool. And we, as the South African Police Service, have been given a mandate to ensure that the service itself is professional, is demilitarized, and has got to aim at conducting policing in an integrated manner, working with our communities to achieve better results insofar as policing is concerned. And this mandate, with the recommendations of the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, will be the key guiding tools to our transformation and institutional reform program, as we had emphasized. It would be recalled that the Marikana Commission of Inquiry made a host of recommendations, but I want to highlight some few key critical ones that were also made by the Marikana Commission of Inquiry. It said that the plans for the public order policing operations should identify the means of communication which the police service members will use to communicate with one another in situations such as the ones that occurred in the Marikana. It also said that we should essentially speed up and proceed to set up a panel of experts to assist us with the work of transforming certain operational aspects of the South African Police Service. The Commission also said that the SAPS should review the adequacy of the training of the members who use specialized equipment, such as water cannons and video equipment. The Commission also said that the specialist firearm officers should receive additional training in the basic first aid skills needed to deal with gunshot wounds, in other words, incidences on the spot. The Commission also said that the recommendations of the National Planning Commission for demilitarization and professionalization of the SAPS should be implemented as a matter of priority. It also said that the staffing and resourcing of the Independent Police Investigations Directorate should be reviewed to ensure that it is able to carry out its functions effectively. Now, turning to the issue of the panel of experts, we have made some progress in constituting the panel of experts. Those of you who followed some of the developments last year will recall that we also appeared before the Portfolio Committee in Parliament around this very same issue, and offered all the necessary sort of detail in terms of what the structural outlook essentially would look like. But what the panel of experts would also begin to look at is the question of the review of public order policing, looking at alternative methods insofar as issues of crowd control and management, for an example, or managing incidences of public protests per se. that it would have to look at revising and amending standing procedures and orders, including all other prescripts relevant to the public order policy. Investigate the adequacy and/or inadequacy of public order policing methods. Look at the other available tools and equipment for use, which are non-lethal in character and execution, and also other methods that have got to be applied in situations where less or non-lethal force have got to be applied. Now, I'm not going to dwell into what the structural outlook of the independent panel of experts per se. It looks like this is just one slide that we also dealt with before Parliament last year. Now, the Minister of Police had a series of consultations with various stakeholders with a view to arrive at a pool of suitable men and women who essentially could play a valuable sort of role in the work of the panel of experts, and particularly informed and zooming into the specific areas of recommendations by the Marikana Commission of Inquiry. So we received a number of nominations from various stakeholders, and they have been accordingly considered for appointment onto the panel of experts, and that the list that we're announcing today necessarily is not exhaustive. In other words, there will still be other people that will also perhaps step forward and want to also make a contribution in the work of the panel of experts and so on. Currently, we have Mr. Temba Masugu as a member of the panel of experts from the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation. We also have Ms. Adele Kesten from Gun Free South Africa. We also have Mr. Gareth Newham representing the Institute for Security Studies. We also have Mr. David Bruce, who is an independent consultant, but we'll remember Mr. David Bruce was also an expert witness before the Marikana Commission of Inquiry. Dr. Elizabeth Krobler is an independent expert and has also published quite extensively, or not extensively, but published around issues of policing, corrections, and the issue of the South African Police Service and so on. Aldred de Klerk from the Africa Center for Security and Intelligence Practice, and employee organizations from the South African Police Service, as well as experts from within, because we had said, and in fact even the commission itself, in its wisdom, felt that it was also going to be important to tap into the existing sort of knowledge and pool of expertise and experience within the police service, who must also serve on the panel. Mr. C. Derova is also an independent expert, but was also Mr. C. Derova will also be it will also be recalled that he was also an expert witness before the Marikana Commission of Inquiry. We also have one of the recommendations from the Marikana Commission was a Commission of Inquiry, was that we also needed to tap into international best practice kind of issues around issues of public order policing, and that therefore we needed to look into countries that were more or less similar with our own, more or less similar with the South African experience when it comes to issues of public protest and so on. In this regard, we have pulled in a representative from the government of Russia, the government of China, the government of Brazil, as well as Italy. Now, we had earlier on spoken about the question of policy and legislative program. Some of the issues that started off in 2015 and some others that started off probably before the year 2015, this is what we'll also identify in this particular presentation. One of them is the question of the white paper on safety and security. And the white paper on safety and security is a policy document and position that seek to bring an integrated approach to addressing the root causes of crime in our country. We also have the white paper on police, which had also started off, and it's a broad-arching policy framework aimed at reaffirming and strengthening the principles of good governance of policing in a democratic dispensation. It re-emphasizes the transformation and professionalization of the police. It will be recalled that, for an example, just to make an example around the question of reaffirming and strengthening the principles of good governance and of policing in a democratic dispensation, it will be recalled that the last time the South African Police Service Act, was amended was in 1995. And that's just a year before the adoption of the democratic constitution in 1996. So essentially the white paper on police has also to serve one particular policy objective, and that's the question of aligning the South African Police Service Act to the dictates of what the democratic constitution is about and seeks to achieve. We were also aiming that the policy documents on demilitarization and professionalization of the police would have to be prioritized, and in fact, in one of the panel which in a sense looks like it's a technical support structure below the international panel of experts, it will also need to look into the developing from a research point of view a work around the policy positions on demilitarization and professionalization, with a view, of course, for us to begin to respond to some of the issues that are raised by the National Development Plan, as well as supporting our efforts in transforming and looking at reforming the institution itself, the South African Police Service. And we hope that before the end of the financial year, we should be through with research work and construction and putting together those particular policy positions. On the legislative front, we still have the Critical Infrastructure Bill, which has got to repeal the National Key Points Act, Act 102 of 1980. And that what this bill as it stands provides for a legal framework for the declaration and protection of critical infrastructures. The Firearms Control Amendment Bill it's a bill that is also there, which seeks to strengthen the Firearms Control Act, Act 60 of year 2000, and it has got to provide a more effective framework for the control and non-proliferation of firearms in our society. The IPID Amendment Bill, it's a bill that seeks to bring strong legislation that will contribute to the fight against corruption and enhance the police accountability. The Animal Movement and Animal Procedure Bill is a bill that seeks to repeal the Stock Theft Act of 1959 by providing farmers with a framework for monitoring animals and animal procedure. Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorism and Related Matters Amendment Bill. It's a bill that seeks to update the status of international instruments and redefinition of terrorist activity in line with international developments. On the international front, we have entered into a set of obligations, for an example, in the fight against drug trafficking, as well as human trafficking. And this has been done within the context of the BRICS arrangements. We have started a transnational dialogue on issues of drug trafficking with with Russia and the African Union member states, and it's called the Africa-Russia Anti-Drug Dialogue. And the purpose of the dialogue will be to declare our determination to combat global drug production and trafficking through close cooperation and interaction on an anti-drug cooperation with our counterparts in different countries. The outcome of the dialogue should inform our position as a continent, in other words, through the African Union, to be tabled at the United Nations General Assembly Special Session on the world drug problem, to be held in the second quarter of 2016. We will be holding, in this regard, we'll also be holding, actually hosting a summit, the Africa-Russia Summit in March this year in Durban, which will also see the participation of various stakeholders within the BRICS auspices, tackling the question of drug trafficking problem in the world. I'll talk to the question of the key milestones that have defined us in recent terms. The question of the SAPS management structure has been finalized, and we are continuing to place all senior officers in their respective positions. In this regard, and this also is in line with the question of the back to basics approach, in this regard, the point of emphasis is placing people with skills wherein they can utilize them, and that's the point of emphasis. The transformation and institutional reform approach will also be supported by the setting up of the Program Management Office, which is to be finalized now in January 2016. The Program Management Office will be at the center of coordinating work relating to the international panel of experts, and of course the other task team that is being led by the Deputy Minister of Police. The non-statutory force project is also being finalized, and a number of milestones have been achieved in this regard. For an example, a multidisciplinary task team led by the Deputy Minister of Police is in place, and the task team is focusing on the conditions of service for members, as well as the issues of re-ranking and re-enlistment of members, and we hope to take further updates on this particular issue and report accordingly in terms of progress that is being made in this regard. The re-ranking committee, as well as the re-ranking appeals committee, have been established to deal with the process of re-ranking and re-enlistment of members. And we'll continue to provide feedback and reports on these matters as and when we continue to intensify our efforts around issues of transformation and institutional reform. We do think that this particular period is going to be full of activity as we ignite, as we put an emphasis on the issues of transformation and institutional reform in the South African Police Service. There's going to be quite a lot of interesting activity that's going to come out in that direction. And certainly we're looking forward to the work of the international panel of experts and following through on the Marikana Commission of Inquiry recommendations, because that's where the gist of issues of transformation will also emerge. Our focus on improving the investigation and detection of crime will continue in this quarter and in the new financial year, in order for us to improve and begin to be proactive in our fight against crime. Our policy and legislative programs will further assist us in improving our regulatory environment and governance within the South African Police Service. And we will continue to ensure more police visibility on in our communities and business districts with a view to ensure that the people of South Africa are and indeed do feel safe. There are lessons that we will have to draw on, particularly given what transpired over the festive season, the issues of visibility. We can only intensify efforts in that particular direction as the South African Police Service, but also begin to take feedback in terms of what the actual lived experience has been and is on the question of the impact that is derived from the question of visibility on the side of the police service. Program Director, I will now ask the Acting National Commissioner to take us through and zoom specifically into the area of the operational aspects, as well as some operational detail and figures relating to the experience that we have gone through insofar as the festive season is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Minister. Good morning, everyone, members of the media, the generals that are with us here. Together with the Minister of Police, we have decided to take policing back to basics. When we said that, we understood that we wanted the police to focus on their core business, which is the investigation of crime, the prevention of crime, the gathering of intelligence to enable both proactive and reactive policing. We also prioritized members of the South African Police Service. At the time, our members were under attack. You will know that we have lost a number of them in this year, and we had thought that there need to be a response from us as the department led by the minister, and we are satisfied that there are measures in place to deal with the issues to minimize and or eradicate the attacks on police people. It is important that we understand what is it that we are referring to when we talk about back to basics. This approach is centered around a few critical organization concerns that will be rigorously addressed going forward. These include discipline and the manner in which police officers conduct themselves as a distinctive characteristic of policing. Enhance police visibility, which implies more police officers in uniform, thereby minimizing the opportunities to commit crime. The targeted, informed deployment of operational resources to ensure the optimal utilization of the limited resources that the police have at their disposal, ensuring that they are applied to maximum effect. In addition, those areas of chronic underperformance must be corrected through specific recovery plans targeting the visible policing and detective services capability in the South African Police Service. You'll recall when we presented the annual report to the Portfolio Committee, one area where we had seriously underperformed was Program 3 Detective Services. We thought that it is worth prioritizing that area so that we deal with the issues that are challenging to make sure that cases get processed through the criminal justice system. The recovery plans are not only focused on ensuring the improvement of performance and the achievement of annual targets, but are also driving the back to basics approach. The performance analysis concluded by SAPS senior management also included the identification of worst performing police stations in terms of both the reported incidents of serious crime as well as the detection of crime. We thought it is important that those issues are lifted so that we can focus our attention on. It is against that background that we have went to all the 9 provinces, making visible the areas of non-performance, challenging areas to everyone who forms part of management in a province, at a cluster, at a station, every unit, so that all of us could focus and deal with those issues. This enabled the targeting of these underperforming stations for the immediate implementation of the Visible Policing and Detective Services Recovery Plan. Now, just in brief, what is it that will be found in the Visible Policing Recovery Plan? What is it that it's seeking to address? It focuses on a number of crime prevention and station management priorities, which includes ensuring crime advice and awareness. If we are to be successful in the fight against crime, active participation of our communities becomes very critical. Improving police visibility to address the opportunities to commit crimes, the conducting of special police station operations to prevent crime. This must be targeted, they must be environment specific. The conducting of social crime prevention operations, addressing crimes against women and children, ensuring effective border security management, and the proper policing of all incidents of public disorder or security nature, which are not deemed to be normal crime from first response perspective. Assisting the detectives in the tracing and arrest of wanted persons, addressing the proliferation of firearms, drugs, gang conflict, liquor abuse, stolen and robbed vehicles, and contributors to serious crimes. The targeting of the proliferation of stolen goods, quality service delivery and responsiveness, victim support, personnel and physical resourcing availability at the station, addressing the internal organizational climate and culture at stations, leadership and governance at stations, performing monitoring, evaluation and reporting, and addressing criminality. Those who understand policing will agree that these are the basics that have to be performed by all of us in rendering service to the people of this country. In respect of the Detective Services Recovery Plan, it was designed to dovetail with the Visible Policing Recovery Plan to ensure synergized operational activities between the 2 policing capabilities, addresses the following crime investigation priorities. 1, improve and measure the investigation and management of case dockets, implement measures to continuously update the crime administration system and continuously capture actual performance to avoid an annual performance spike. Conduct a docket age analysis to inform the management of individual case dockets. It's for us very critical that those cases that have been reported, the victims of crime continuously are engaged during the investigation process to ensure that there is feedback. We cannot afford a situation where you have got cases long outstanding not being attended to. Assess the docket allocation methodology to ensure that you don't have members overloaded with case dockets. Ensure the effective management of wanted persons. Verify the manner of closure of case dockets as undetected and withdrawn to determine whether dockets were correctly closed or if further investigation is required. Because people do not come to the police station to lodge a complaint just for insurance purposes. We need to do thorough investigations on those cases to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book. Determine timelines for investigating categories of crime to determine standard resolution rate per crime type. Ensure the effective management of crime scenes and exhibits. And here I will call upon the members of the media, we need to respect the crime scene. Because if we get it wrong at the crime scene, we will have compromised that particular crime scene. We will make it difficult for that particular case to be solved. So it is important that the crime scene is respected by all of us and maybe minimize the flighting of issues related to investigations in the public space, because it tends to hurt the investigation process. Ensure the effective management of crime scenes and exhibits, as I said. Optimize the utilization of forensic evidence and leads. Ensure the linking of buccal samples by authorized persons of all persons arrested in terms of Schedule 8 of the DNA Act. Develop a system solution to determine case docket links based on forensic-based leads. Improve the management of bail applications to improve performance. Track and trace of dismissed appeals. Investigate the reintroduction of the uniform investigation capability to reduce the workload on detectives. Addressing, activating relevant stakeholders that detectives require within the investigation value chain, and operationalize the organized crime threat analysis. Maybe if I go straight to some of the issues related to the festive season operation, and I must say that we are very grateful of the feedback and encouragement that we are getting from the general public, from the business community, in terms of the efforts of the South African Police Service, which went a long way of bringing us closer towards the Constitution demands from us as an organization. We focused ourselves on a number of pillars. Those pillars, you'll know that they will have communicated as part of our Operation Fiela, an integrated approach that we have adopted as government. But we wanted to make a serious dent in these areas. One, aggravated robberies, Enforcement of Firearm Control Act, Liquor Act, Second-Hand Goods Act, and Safety Act, crimes against women, children, and persons with disability, wanted suspects, road safety enforcement, and border security. Now, as the minister said earlier, on average, 20,940 police people were deployed. The much spoken about deployment of trainees. Only if you don't understand policing, you'll ask, why are we deploying these trainees? Our view remains that those trainees had done an excellent job during the period that they were deployed. They made sure that the visibility is a reality, and you can be assured that they are at an advanced stage of their training. So there was no question that we would have intended to risk them. On the contrary, the deployment allowed them practical exposure. And now that they are back in the training institutions, completing their phase one of their training, they are better positioned to understand what is it that is expected of them as police people. Just looking at some activities that were performed over the festive period, a total of 4,721,000 operation-specific activities were performed in the financial year. The primary focus was on patrols executed in identified high-crime areas. The leading province with regard to the activities is KwaZulu-Natal with 1.8 million activities, followed by Gauteng with 1.1, and Western Cape with 635 activities. These are the number of searches, a total of 5.9 million searches conducted in the period under review. The searches included persons, vehicles, and premises. The leading search category was persons searched, with Gauteng leading with 994,089, followed by KwaZulu-Natal with 632,179, and the Free State with 601,200. In general, Gauteng was the leading province with 1.4 searches, followed by KwaZulu-Natal with 932, and the Free State with 776. In respect of Pillar 1, a total of, this speaks to the arrest. And the crimes included there will be your housebreaking, attempted house robbery, robbery with firearm, attempted robbery, car hijacking, truck hijacking, cash in transit, bank robberies, business robberies, attempted business robbery, robbery with weapon other than firearm, illegal possession of firearms. In this regard, a total of 9,406 arrests were made in this category, including 2,652 arrests for the illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, 1,968 arrests for robbery with weapon other than firearm, and 1,362 arrests for business robberies. The highest number of arrests were effected in Gauteng, followed by KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape. Again, Pillar 2, this is now in respect of arrest, firearm, liquor and second-hand goods, as well as safety at sports and recreational events. There we have drug-related crime, drinking in public, drunk in public place, illegal dealing in liquor, illegal dealing in second-hand goods. A total of 110,337 arrests were made in this category, including 62,095 arrests for drug-related crime, 29,077 arrests for public drunkenness, and 12,059 for drinking in public space. The highest number of arrests were effected in the Western Cape, followed by Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. Pillar 3 arrests, a total of 6,782 arrests were made in this category, including 4,774 arrests for rape, 645 arrests for sexual assault, 521 arrests for kidnapping. The highest number of arrests were effected in Gauteng, followed by KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. That presents to you the arrest in respect of Pillar 4, a total of 3,579, and there you see it's arrest of wanted persons. Western Cape leading there, 1,026, followed by KwaZulu-Natal with 913, and Gauteng with 739. Again, arrests in respect of Pillar 5, a total of 19,588 arrests were made in this category, including 19,426 arrests for driving under the influence of liquor, drugs, and 162 arrests for culpable homicide. The highest number of arrests were effected in Gauteng, followed by KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape. We may accept that we may want to drink a little, not too much, because liquor creates chaos in our country. Border control arrests, they are the numbers that I'm not going to go through them one by one, but just to make visible to you the categories: undocumented persons, fraudulent documents, theft of motor vehicles, possession of drugs, counterfeit goods, and other crimes. There will also be hits where, for example, someone is wanted, that we are able to secure that person while he or she is about to cross the border. These are the number of fines issued, a total of 421,420 fines. Confiscations, a total of 3,057 vehicles were confiscated during the period under review. 1,193 vehicles were confiscated in Gauteng, 1,015 in KwaZulu-Natal, and 258 in the Western Cape. A total of 5,310 firearms were confiscated, including 4,538 handguns, 410 rifles, 240 shotguns, 83 homemade firearms, and 39 semi-automated firearms. The highest number of firearms were confiscated in Gauteng, that is 2,309, KwaZulu-Natal 1,560, and the Western Cape 463. A total of 112,339 rounds of ammunition were confiscated, The leading province with regard to ammunition confiscation is Gauteng with 73,682, followed by KwaZulu-Natal with a total of 15,498, and Western Cape with a total of 14,275. Explosives confiscation was also noted with a total of 60 different explosives confiscated. Limpopo was the leading province with 50 explosives confiscated. Livestock was among confiscations noted for this period. The most confiscation were on sheep with a total of 1,716 confiscation, followed by cattle with 727 confiscations. Other livestock was 116 confiscations. The following illicit drugs were confiscated: dagga, crystal meth, there we have got teak, cat, heroin, thioate, and Mendrex tablets form the majority of drugs which were confiscated nationally. Dagga led all drugs with the number of confiscations. There was a total of 39,709 grams of dagga confiscated nationally. The top province with regard to this drug confiscation is the Eastern Cape with 11.7 grams, followed by Gauteng with 6.2, and Northern Cape with 5.9. Those are millions, it's not just a number. The second top drug confiscated is cat with a total of 4.4 million. The top province with regard to this drug is Mpumalanga with 3.9, followed by Western Cape with 639 grams, and Gauteng with 107.97 grams confiscated. The third top drug is teak with the total of 412,980. The top province in this regard is the Western Cape with 313,802 grams confiscated, followed by Eastern Cape with 94,228.23 grams, and Gauteng with 3,281.47. The fourth top drug is heroin, thioate, with a total of 3,896, and the top province is KwaZulu-Natal. Mendrex tablets were confiscated in numbers. There were a total of 226,627 tablets confiscated during the operation. The leading province there being the Western Cape. Major events, I take note that you will have followed some of these that were policed over the period. Forum of China-Africa Cooperation, the FOCAC, National Reconciliation Day celebrations, January 8th statement, and all this incident-free and no force used. If we go into the crime overview, a comparison of the broad crime categories provides insights into the levels of serious crimes, including crimes that have a significant impact on feelings of safety and security. A preliminary comparative analysis of serious crime reported in December 2015 indicates a reduction in reported crime in 5 of the 9 provinces compared to the same period in the 2014-15 financial year. 3 of the 4 provinces where an increase in crime was recorded an increase ranging from 0.28% to 1.47%. The highest recorded increase was recorded in Limpopo, namely 8.6. A similar preliminary comparative analysis of serious crime reported in the period April 2015 to December 2015, looking at a 9-month period, indicates a decrease in reported serious crime in 7 of the 9 provinces. An increase of 0.27 was recorded in the Northern Cape, and the highest increase was recorded in Limpopo, 4.6%. Considering the potential impact of increased police visibility during the festive season on property-related crime. It must be noted that a decrease in reported property-related crimes was recorded in 8 of the 9 provinces in December 2015. A preliminary comparative analysis of property-related crime reported indicates an increase in crime only in 1 province, namely KwaZulu-Natal. That is in respect of this area. A long-term comparative analysis of reported property-related crime indicates a decrease in reported crime in 6 of the 9 provinces. Property-related crime reported in the period April 2015 to December 2015 increased in 3 provinces, Northern Cape, Limpopo, and KwaZulu-Natal. So the picture before you is saying to you, where did we realize an increase? So the dark color is where there was an increase, and the lighter one is where there is a decrease, and this is in respect of serious crimes. So there you'll note Northwest, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and KwaZulu-Natal. That is where we would have realized an increase in serious crimes. The next one, it's also serious crimes. It shows April to December. The increase would have realized in the Northern Cape, 0.27%, and Limpopo 4.6%, which I have spoken to earlier. This one, it's property-related crimes, December 2015. You'll note that only KwaZulu-Natal during the December period will have recorded a 3.02% increase in property-related crimes during December. If you take the period April to December 2015, Limpopo will recorded 1.01%, also Northern Cape 0.1% increase, as well as KwaZulu-Natal 0.8% increase. In the main, all other provinces had a reduction. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. And let's confirm that as the department, as the South African Police Service, the safety and security of our people is key. We will work hard to ensure that we get closer to what the Constitution demands from us, our vision of ensuring that all people are and feel safe. Thanks, Minister.
There was a time 1,000,000 years ago when you looked at the people in the auditorium and they were looking at whoever is presenting and you thought they were listening. Now you just have to go into Twitter to check whether they are listening. And of course, from what I've seen, they have been listening and there will be questions. And Barry Bateman will be restricted to 2 questions at most. We'll now get to that session where we take the questions. I will take 3 up here, and then I'll go to Cape Town, and then we'll take another 3. I'll start with Barry and Michael and Shulson. All right.
Good afternoon, Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News. I'd like to start with General Pachane. This is my question directed to you. Some of the strongest criticism to your Back to Basics program and the restructuring in the police has come from police union Pop Crew. They even attempted to go to court to try and have the restructuring halted. They claim that what you were doing is contrary to bargaining council agreements where all parties should apparently be consulted and brought on board to discuss such restructuring before it is done. Is there any truth to this allegation by Pop Crew? Have they been consulted on your restructuring? Who has been consulted on the restructuring, and are they going to have any say in it? So just generally that they're related to Pop Crew's concerns. My other question relates to General Nklemeza, and this is following an announcement on Friday that you're going to be petitioning the SCA in the Johan Boyson matter. I know the process that we're going through with Boyson in this particular one reflects what happened in the Sibia matter, where the leave to appeal was dismissed. You petitioned, went all the way through to the SCA, and eventually it was dismissed entirely. And I just have to quickly remark on the findings of Matajani J, finding that you misled that particular court, and he found that there were questions surrounding your integrity, that you lacked integrity. Now we've had another situation with Boyson and Van Sale, Judge Van Sale, where he's found that there's no merit in this case that you have put to Boyson. He's actually had a go at the merits and found there's no case. Yet you're now persisting with this matter, taking it to petition the SCA. So I'd like to find out, on what basis are you persisting with this matter to try and have Boyson hauled before disciplinary on this case where it was found there is no merit? And secondly, does this zealousness to pursue this matter in light that the merits, it is found that there's no merits in this, does it not just reinforce Matajani's findings on your integrity? Thank you.
Good afternoon. The first question is for the Acting National Commissioner, General Pahlane. The incident yesterday related to the Nigerian national, that was the alleged police brutality, the alleged suffocation and death of the Nigerian national. Just your comments on that incident. And the second question is for General Mhlameza. Any comment from the Hawks' side on the State Security Agency, the multi-million rand theft, and the media report that the suspect or alleged mastermind tried to hand himself over to the Hawks, but nobody was prepared to arrest him? Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Johnny Sai Maromo. I'm with the African News Agency in Pretoria. My question is for the acting police chief. At that protest in November, Pop Crew protest, they said that you did not have a plan to curb police killings. And I want to ask, with regard to a detective was killed this month when he was transporting an inmate from Limpopo to Pretoria. He was alone in the car, he was strangled in the car, and he died. I want to know, because Pop Crew said the morale in SAPS was at an all-time low. And I want to check with you, as you interact with police officers on the ground, what's the level of morale and how do they work? Do they believe your strategies that you have now? Thank you so much.
Let's take those answers, please.
May I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. The first question, Barry. First, we must agree that the Constitution allows freedom of speech, but also there is a Labor Relations Act that provides for the active participation of labor in the workplace. Both Pop Crew and SAPU are two unions, main unions that are operational within the South African Police Service, and they have a right to organize. We respect their role, we respect their input in the work that we do. Yes, there is provision in our collective agreement that dictates that there will be consultation when structures are determined or when restructuring processes are being activated. Our consultation is not taking place somewhere in the streets. When it comes to with labor, we engage at the bargaining council, the Safety and Security Bargaining Council. Accordingly, following engagement with everyone internally, once we had a position that we could take to the bargaining council, we approached the Secretary of Council and had sessions that were convened where the structure was presented to both SAPU and Pop Crew representatives, including representatives of management. Following which, after the first session, there was an arrangement to defer that presentation to a week later, so that both parties could go back to their principals and engage them on what was presented at the bargaining council. So, to answer your question, yes, there was consultation. And if you read what the judge had said, what is found in the court papers, we were very comprehensive as to when did the engagement take place. We have got no reason to why we should undermine any of our social partners. Pop Crew has got a constituency in the South African Police Service. We will respect that, and there is no reason why we should not engage with them when it comes to matters of this nature. So, as pronounced by the court, the consultation took place, and we are in the process of implementing the structure the minister alluded to earlier. Somewhere in advancing this argument of non-consultation, reference was made to a presentation by the minister before the portfolio committee, which suggests that the minister has presented the structure. Structures are not the responsibility of the minister. They are the responsibility of the accounting officer, in this case, the National Commissioner. And once we have looked at what our strategies are, what the operational needs are, we have captured that in the form of a structured document, which of course would have required of me as the acting National Commissioner to consult the minister. And that's why I also went to the portfolio committee on the structure. So I have got no doubt in my mind that we have duly complied with the provisions that requires from us to consult. The issue on the, you referred to yesterday, the Nigerian national. May I ask that the matters of this nature be allowed to be fully investigated so that when we pronounce ourselves on facts and not on rumors. But having said that, all of us, South African nationals, members of the South African Police Service, Nigerian nationals, have to comply with the laws of this country. No one is above the law. And where we are found to be on the wrong side of the law, action must be taken. I think it is very important that people respect the South African Police Service when they are executing their policing mandate, not to interfere or make it impossible for them to do so. We will want to not speak to the details of that matter. Safe to say that the Independent Investigative Police Directorate is on the matter. And once there is an outcome, we will deal with the outcomes thereof accordingly. Maybe the third question, which relates to morale, and the reference was made to Pop Crew. And in as far as morale is concerned, I'm not the one to answer it. Maybe after you have listened to what Pop Crew has said, you could maybe meet with members and ask how high or how low is your morale. We believe that the morale of the South African Police Service members is improving. Thus, they went an extra mile over this festive season to make us as a country proud in what they have delivered. Our members are in high spirits. You will see them visible in the streets of our country. They understand what they are supposed to be doing. So we will continue to work hard in making sure that we uplift their morale and make them understand why they are members of the South African Police Service and what is it that is expected of them. In here we have got the provincial commissioners, divisional commissioners, deputy national commissioners who are in the provinces. The minister referred earlier to General Kruse. Excellent work that he delivered over this festive season in leading the forces in the Western Cape. My feedback from him is that members are in high spirits. They just want to work. I was told yesterday there is a member who say, I feel so proud now that I even want to sleep in my uniform. I don't want to take it off. So if there is any suggestion of morale being low, it's foreign to the South African Police Service. And together with the minister, we'll continue working hard to make sure that we get the morale where it's supposed to be. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I'm not getting this right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Is it okay?
Yeah. No.
No, but it's not
Yeah.
going on.
Okay.
Is that on?
It's on.
Okay. So let me do this. Now, thank you very much for these questions. I've just asked maybe 2 or 3 issues that I want to reflect on. The first one is that I've just asked General Ndlemeza not to respond to those questions, precisely because I think that what we should be able to respect around legal issues is to observe the processes that are unfolding, for an example. So the issue pertaining to General Johan Boysen is a matter that is before our courts. And therefore, the question of issues such as the question that you're raising, Mr. Bateman, are issues that both technically and legally and otherwise are issues to be contested there at that particular level. But the other thing that I want to say is that I think we should also be careful in how we express ourselves around legal issues, be it judgments and anything else and so on. For instance, you say that the judge said that there's no case. How do you establish a case? You establish a case through a process, for an example. If at your workplace, where you work as a journalist, there are allegations of wrongdoing, it is only through an established disciplinary process that would establish a case or a no case. So outside of that, you can't just simply arbitrarily just stand there and say, no, there's no case, and so forth. So the manner in which, either we report on judgments as they are, because if we don't, we'll be giving our own interpretations, for an example. And I think that would be a wrong thing to do altogether. And I think there's no sensible judge that wants his or her own judgment to be interpreted otherwise, other than what he or she would have said. So that's the one point. The same also goes for, I think you said Judge Matojane around, I remember being asked this question at some point somewhere in Parliament. And I asked the journalist in question, what did the judge say? And then it was read in verbatim. And what was read in verbatim is that the judge said, in his opinion. Now that's an expression of an opinion, not judgment. In his opinion. Because indeed, if it was judgment, it wouldn't have just stopped there. There would have been a case of perjury, for instance, to be pursued, correctly so, against General Ndlemeza for either the accusations of being dishonest and misleading and everything else and so on. Now, again, and I think this is the point that proves this particular issue that I'm talking about. Either we say what exactly the judge said, or we don't. Because anything else that we say it's a matter of interpretation, is how you interpret it. Now, you say the judge made a finding. The judge made absolutely no finding. The judge expressed an opinion. Now, we must remember that, and I do think that before any particular judgment is arrived at, there are issues that would have to be interrogated, dealt with from all sorts of angles, be it the question of evidence that gets brought before a duly constituted court of law and so on, and for those issues to be then processed before a pronouncement is made. Now, an expression of an opinion can be done anyway, and it's just an opinion. So, so I then asked that perhaps on these issues, those are the general points that I would like us to observe, other than just giving our own interpretation and understanding to what the judgments would have been, I think it's important that we capture the actual articulations, particularly by legal officers from the bench, correctly so, in terms of what the issues would have been, instead of what ourselves would like to hear and understand through those particular judgments. So I just wanted to clarify that around the two issues. The one is the General Poison matter. It's an ongoing legal particular matter and so on. But also I raised the question. The question is, how do we establish a case? Can it just be whimly and arbitrarily sort of been decided that there's no case and so on? You go through a particular process to arrive at a particular case. You can't even do that. Now, the instruments before the institution of policing in this country is that you have got to start somewhere. If there are allegations, there are allegations. And you can't say because somebody's facing allegations, it therefore translates into guiltiness of sorts, because they, surely General Boysen is not guilty of any particular offense as we speak. General Boysen is facing particular allegations that have got to be subjected to investigation, but also have got to be subjected to a process of discipline, for instance, to establish whether indeed there is a valid case or no valid case, for an example. And then we take it on from there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Can we take Cape Town?
Thank you, Chair. Linda, over to you.
Good morning, Minister. Linda Ensor, Business Day. I don't know if there's any update on the disciplinary process against the Commissioner. And also, the President has been sitting on the private regulation of, the regulation of private security industry bill now for almost a year. We understand that there have been representations and there's a possibility of a rethink. Could you update us, please? Thanks.
Back to you, Chair.
Okay. Is there another round here in Pretoria? And that will be the last one, so make it count. I'll start with Leranzu, Tehila. Forgive me, I don't know your name. Esipo, and that would be it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's Leranza Tan from ENCA. I've got two questions. I'm really interested to find out more, Minister, about the prioritization of detective work. Does this mean that the specialized, unit debate is firmly back on the agenda? And just tell us more about, what other plans are going to be put in place to make sure that this unit indeed is threatened, because we do know that security experts, many of them have, raised their concerns about that being lacking and this being really resulting in many cases not being resolved and so forth. And just to go back to the Forum Commission, and this goes to both of you, the Police Commissioner as well as the Minister. Look, you did mention that, a few candidates have been appointed to look into, the recommendations that have been put forward. But are you confident that, through this process, when it is done, that our public order policing will be better equipped, definitely, and the scenes that we did see in 2012 will never unfold again in this country? And also, I don't have the statement, unfortunately, so I wasn't able to really reference back to what you did say about timeframes. But are there any timeframes that this panel will be working on, and how many of them exactly will there be? Thank you.
Thank you. Tehila Nisilo from Power FM. Just talking to the issue of morale in the police service. From what I can understand, there's a number of police officers here in Gauteng in the constable and warrant officer level who have remained on that level now for 11 years. And there seems to be some complaints about that, and that's affecting morale. On the Marikana issue, is there any plans to bring back the former Northwest Police Commissioner Zukiswa Mbombo, because there was a recommendation made against her by the judge? And is there any progress that's been made with that internal team looking at the possible charges? I know IPID was working with the NPA around the police officers who were on the ground on that day. Thank you.
Sipuma Somboga for the Times newspaper. My two questions are directed to the acting police commissioner. With regards to police killings, do you have any idea, if you could take the nation into confidence, why do we have such a high level of police killings? And secondly, also, could you please share with us the number of arrests made in connection with police killings, particularly in connection to those killed last year? I think, if I'm not wrong, it was about 80. Thank you.
Good afternoon, it's Hasina from SABC TV News. I have two questions. There seems to be a growing trend of community members cornering and attacking police. We saw it in the Johannesburg CBD earlier this week, where police were called to maintain law and order, and then they were attacked. Similarly, yesterday. Is that a concern for police officers, and what are the plans to deal with it? Secondly, with the issue of police brutality, on the one end, it's still a major issue, but then we also have the police killings. How do we deal with both of these issues and ensure that they both don't continue?
Okay, thank you.
Oh, at least now this thing is back on. Now it works. Thank you. I didn't want to brush my shoulders with the acting national commissioner here. I'll respond to some of the few issues that have been raised. The one on the question of the disciplinary process for our current national commissioner, I will not be able to give you issues of timelines and everything around that, precisely because that process is a process that's being handled somewhere else and not within the ministry of the police service. Indeed, the issue of the private regulatory security bill, as the lady down in Cape Town raised, is a matter that still has got to be followed up. I'm aware that there have been a number of different speculations around this issue. But of course, speculations, they remain speculations on the question of what the issues are, around the bill itself and so forth. There have also been discussions between ourselves and the Department of Trade and Industry. I'm aware that the two teams have been meeting to also try and deal with some of the perceived concerns that at some point must have emanated. The question of detective work, and I think your interest is whether or not are we going to see the resuscitation of specialized units. We have acknowledged, for instance, that there is a huge outcry in our society about the question of the reintroduction of the specialized units, and those matters are being processed. And in due course, we shall make announcements in regard to those particular issues, because indeed, we do need to respond to those particular demands from the side of the South African public about the recreation or resuscitation of the specialized units. Are we sure that at the end of the process of the international panel of experts will have better equipped public order policing and so forth? All I can say is that everything possible would be done. And of course, the question of the international best practice kind of issues have got to be factored and be at the center of dealing with the issue of how well do we equip our unit in public order policing. And in fact, even under the circumstances, the public order policing has really been at the center of many different sort of public activities in containing them, even under the current circumstances and so on. All we can do is to improve from this particular position onwards. On the question of the morale, I think the acting national commissioner will respond on that question. I do not know. I mean, I think the lady spoke about the question of the Marikana Commission of Inquiry. Would we see Commissioner Mbombo being brought back? I don't know. I don't know, brought back from where? Now, Jan Mbombo is a South African citizen. And if there are matters that would still require her to make an input pertaining to ongoing matters relating to the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, I think a particular process will then be followed, indeed, to deal with such. Plans around the question of community members attacking the police. We all of us, we all have got a role to play, for an example, in ensuring that two things do happen. The first one is the question of just the respect for the law, because that's where we need to begin. You know, that amongst ourselves as ordinary South African citizens, the question of respecting the law is very, very important. It's quite crucial. But secondly is that it is the most backward thing that any individual can ever do, because the South African Police Service is a service for the South African public. And therefore, when we embark on attacks against the police, we kill the police and so forth, essentially what we'll then be doing as society is to kill ourselves, because, as I said, the police service is, you know, an institution that is there to service a public interest, but also is the only instrument that we have thus far in our society that all of us as society have got to use in ensuring issues of peace and stability, for an example, in creating a safer environment for our communities. And so it's the only institution that we have got. So we will have to embark ourselves, yes, on the side of the police, but also generally speaking, even leadership at a societal level, we have got to embark on efforts to mobilize for a much more of a constructive engagement between members of the South African police and communities, but also better relations at the end of the day. It's very, very, very important. You also asked the question about police brutality. I do not know in respect of what really, because I don't want, you know, I wouldn't like to hear you as making a general point that we have police that are brutal, because that is not the case. So I just would like you to get into to zoom into the specific sort of reference in this regard.
The question was in general, police brutality on the one side, but there's also police killings. How do we deal with both of them?
No, I think on the question of the police killings, I've already reflected on that issue. But where I disagree with you is to have a broader category of a definition called police brutality. Because what we are then implying is that the South African Police Service, you know, consists of members that are brutal. And I'm saying if that is the notion and your understanding, it can be correct.
Would there not be incidences of police that are being brutal in certain circumstances or in certain situations? Or we've seen situations of that happening?
Yeah, okay, maybe that's a better formulation, I think. Now, of course, incidences that relate to police brutality are incidences that we will continue to investigate, you know, to actually get to the root causes of what would have happened at that point in time. But also, importantly, looking at institutional sort of mechanisms and interventions that we may have got to make, for an example. So let me give you an example. Arising out of the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, there are specific issues that Judge Falam points out to, question of equipping and training of the public order policing and so forth. Those are institutional measures and mechanisms that would have to be effected in effectively transforming the manner in which we conduct public order policing and so on. So we'll continue to deal with such, because indeed, out of each particular incident and occurrence of sorts, there are lessons to be derived out of that, and we can only assist us to be able to deal with matters much more better in future when it comes to issues of public order policing and policing in general. So could I then ask General Pashane to deal with the question of morale?
Thanks, Minister. Maybe let me start there where reference is made to police brutality and police people being cornered. I got the sense that you are very much conflicted in asking this question, because on the one hand, you agree that the police people are under attack, but on the other hand, you say they are brutal. Now, our view is police people are empowered to act and deal with the situation at hand. And in dealing with any situation, we continuously encourage them to act within the confines of the law. And one such provision in our laws is that there should be proportional use of force. Now, you referred to an incident yesterday, for your information. Those who killed that member Engine Affairs are behind bars as we speak. The firearm that was taken from him has been recovered. So we are not going to be turning our eyes blind when such incidents are there. We have to respond accordingly. Now, it can be that when there is a response to a particular situation, that we jump the gun and conclude that the police are brutal. It pains me to hear we are brutal. And there was reference to 2012. Now we have moved on since 2012. We have policed, for example, protest marches left, right, and center. We have exercised maximum restraint in the process. We thought that we came back to our people and said, we have delivered. Amongst others, it was protests relating to fees must fall. You don't have a record of anyone who died out of that scenario. But how many stones were pelted at the police? Where were those who view us as being brutal when our people were under severe attack? But they managed to restrain themselves, and thus we were able to deliver a peaceful outcome to the situation at hand. We must say to our communities, we depart from the premise that the majority of us are law-abiding citizens. And let us not be surprised by people proving us wrong in believing that when they are, for example, to protest and so on, they will be peaceful, because that's what the Constitution provides for. Freedom of speech, people must be allowed to protest and so on. But where, for example, action is required from the police, police will act accordingly, but we will act within the confines of the law. If there is one of us whose behavior goes astray, that will be dealt with accordingly, as the minister said earlier. Why police killings? I want to know, why are we being killed? I'm the wrong one to answer that question. We are servants of the people of this country, and we will want to serve our communities. Of course, we accept that there are criminal elements amongst us, and maybe simply I can say it's because there are criminal elements there whose vision is to take us as the police out of the equation so that they can continue with their evil deeds. We will respond accordingly when such happens. But we'll want to work hard together with our communities and everyone else to minimize the incidents of police killings or the attacks on police people. I am not going to give figures as to how many were arrested in relation to the police killings, because those figures are not readily available here. Our focus was more on what we have done over the festive season and what is it that the back to basics approach means. In terms of the morale, you may not have been present. We hosted the press briefing where we communicated our plans from a human resource management perspective on who will be the beneficiaries of promotions. Then we had announced promotions following the settlement with Solidarity. On that same day, we have said what promotions will be implemented in the remainder of this financial year, including re-enlistments and so on. It's to me academic to refer to just warrant officers and constables as people that we have been long in those ranks. There is great progression. They continue to be looked well after when they meet the requirements that is being delivered. Maybe just one thing on the detectives that the minister have spoken to. One of the things that we did was to agree that we take policing back to basics, and we said an area of focus will be the detective services environment. We have just spoken to you on the recovery plan, which is aimed at ensuring that we improve what we are offering from an investigation perspective. General Ngonya, sitting next to me, has been leading the management interventions together with seasoned detectives going to stations and paying specific attention to the work that is done there. And we are satisfied that we are making commendable progress. There are issues that, together with the minister, we had said to ourselves, we're going to prioritize going forward. For example, the farm attacks, attack on farmers, which is something which is an area of concern. But we don't want only to talk about farm attacks when you talk solely about the farmers. You also need to talk about the farm workers. We need to look at that particular area. The issue of drugs, it's something that worries us a great deal, and we will want to deal with that accordingly. There was a question that I may have omitted to respond to earlier, I think in relation to the policeman who was transporting from Limpopo. It is an unfortunate incident. We will want to respect our departed colleague and not deal with that issue in detail. It's a matter that is under investigation, and I think it will come to a point where we can take the matter before the courts. What we are grateful of is that the one who was responsible for that act is in police custody, and will continue to do our work. Thanks, Minister.
Thank you.
Minister, the last word? No?
No, okay, no, thank you very much. I think what is important, though, in the same manner that we have been emphasizing on this point, in the previous year and in the few months, the work of the police relies largely on the amount of support and constructive engagement between the police and members of the community. And we can only succeed, largely informed by that kind of interaction there. And therefore, we will continue to put an emphasis on the positive sort of interactions between community members and members of the police on the ground, so that indeed all of us as members of this society make a definite sort of contribution in bringing about an environment of peace and stability for purposes of our society to develop from where it is and move on to better heights, really. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Before you all disappear, there is lunch with 7 colors, and we would want the media people to eat so that they don't accuse us next time of wasteful expenditure. The generals will sit where they were sitting. The lunch is served in the foyer, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.